Maurice Mahan. Give him a hand, everybody. We're sending out our love to the family of Clifton Moore, longtime supporters of Rainbow Push. Mary Alice Kroom, mother of Kroom Atlanta, our Atlanta Trade Board member. And we've got Lois Willie, two-time Pulitzer Prize winner, made her transition. The great Art Neville, the father of Arthel Neville, and so many others, one of the fathers of New Orleans music, made his transition, one of the Neville brothers. And Edith Irby Jones, first female president of the National Medical Association. We give our love. Put your hands together as these people make their transitions into the heavens. Everyone, this is the 100th anniversary of the Chicago race riots as we look at some Mississippi college students from Ole Miss who stood in front of a sign commemorating where they found the body of Emmett Till. And that sign had already been shot up with bullets. But we have to remember this struggle is ongoing, and please remember our forebears who were involved in those Chicago race riots. It's the 52nd anniversary of the police brutality riots up in Detroit. Again, the struggle continues, but let us put our hands together and celebrate the life and legacy of Emmett Till, we celebrated his birthday this week. You can do better than that. And one of the daughters of this movement, one of the daughters of our organization, celebrated a tremendous milestone. She became the head of the National Bar Association, which is the largest aggregation of black lawyers in the country, the National Bar Association. Put your hands together and give your love to attorney C.K. Hoffler. And of course, Reverend Jackson, and our relationship with President Bill Clinton is well known. He and Secretary Hillary Clinton, the president in exile. Welcome their third grandchild to the world. Give them a round of applause. Oh, you know that's true. She won by 3.4 million votes. We can do better than that. And is Johnny Savory in the room? Johnny Savory? He is one of our young men as we look at Attorney General William Barr reinstituting the death penalty, which was beginning to go out of fashion, yes? Well, he is one of those who had been imprisoned unfairly. I think he was Reverend Jackson at 13 or 14 years of age. But we have been 13 for 30 years. And we're so blessed that he is now part of the Rainbow Push family. It is his birthday today, everybody. Come on, you can do better than that. And so again, we welcome to the stage Maurice Mahan before we bring on one of our brothers beloved, the executive director of Common Cause, as we talk about our voting rights. After the voice of Maurice Mahan, you will hear the voice of Jay Young, the executive director of Common Cause. Put your hands together for the great Maurice Mahan, everybody.
Come on, put your hands together in here. If y'all can join along with us as we go through a hymn. The hymn goes like this. Come on. Yeah, listen. I love to praise him. I love to praise him. I love to praise him. I love the praise. Oh, I love to praise his holy name. One more time. I love to praise him. Yeah. I love, come on, help me out. I love to praise him. Yeah. I love to praise him. Yeah. I love, come on. Oh, I love to praise his whole, come on, help me out. Oh, he's my rock, my sword and shield. He's my wheel in the middle of a wheel. Come on up here. Oh, I know he'll never let me down. He's just a joy
Good morning, family. My name is Jay Young. I'm the executive director of Common Cause Illinois. It's the Illinois chapter of a national 50-year-old organization that's dedicated to holding power accountable and fighting for democracy. I'm real excited to be here, not just because I'll get to spend this morning with you, but usually when people call me to talk about something, it's because something's burning. But I'm here today to talk about a victory in the making. We're seeing all over this country right now state efforts to suppress the vote. We're hearing poll taxes. We're seeing poll taxes in Florida. We're seeing what's happening in Georgia, where they're really trying to mess with the vote. Here in Illinois, we've got about 20,000 people today who are locked up in jails across this state before their trial. Those who are citizens are eligible to vote. And what I'm here to tell you is that there's a bill on the way to Governor Pritzker's desk to make it easier for those folks to have the same rights that all of us otherwise deserve. We're going to see polling places, polling officers in the Cook County Jail. That's something that Rainbow Push is one of the first organizations, if not the first, to be in the Cook County Jail registering people to vote. And I'm here today to tell you that it's going to be the law of this nation, this state, to make that more important. Even more important than what I'm talking about right now is there are 4 million people across this state with criminal histories. A lot of them think they're not eligible to vote. We're coming up on 2020. It's probably going to be the most consequential election in my lifetime. We need as many people in the polls as possible, and one of these things that this bill that's on its way to Governor Pritzker's desk does is it provides Know Your Rights information to folks, our returning citizens. When they're coming home, they're going to learn what a comptroller is. They're going to learn what the difference between a Republican and a Democrat is, and they're going to learn that it is their right to exercise their voice and to make their will known, to protect their community, to protect this country. So again, I'm just thankful to be here. And when those folks come home, I want you all to know it's incumbent on each and every one of you to welcome those folks back and let them know what they have to do. I'll be here with you, and again, just thanks for having me. Thank you.
Oh, you can do better than that. You've got Mitch McConnell, who doesn't want to vote. He doesn't want to bring any bills before the U.S. Senate to protect our vote. And after the election in 2020, if our vote's not protected, many of you will be upset. Now, you give him another round of applause. Amen. Oh, my word. This is about protecting our vote. This is about re-enfranchising the millions of Americans who do not have the vote. We all have somebody in our family, I know I do, who need their votes back. Amen? Okay, he's trying to help us to do that in Illinois and all around the country. Give it to him again. Jay Young. And we are so grateful to Judge Stanley Hill, who takes time out of his busy schedule. Put your hands together. Give him some love. Judge Hill, where are you? He's in the back, as he generally is, like the spine of the body, holding everybody up. But he works with these young people, our orators, helping them to become speakers, preachers, but more than that, they are learning to feel good about themselves and to be able to speak to people and look them in the eye and speak to a crowd and speak to people individually. We know too many of our children who cannot look us in the eye and tell us their names, do we not? Well, he works with our young people, so all of that is out of the window, and we hope that our young people who are watching today will be inspired. And so we've got a wonderful young boy who's becoming a young man. That's right. He's in 7th grade. Jaden Blankenship, everybody, one of our great orators. Come on, from the Avery Conley School. Come on, and down his grove.
Hi, my name is Jaden Blankenship, and I will be reciting to you Democracy and All My Life by Langston Hughes. Democracy will not come today, this year, nor ever through compromise and fear. I have as much right as the other fellow has to stand on my 2 feet and own the land. I tire so of hearing people say, let things take their course. Tomorrow is another day. I do not need my freedom when I am dead. I cannot live on tomorrow's bread. Freedom is a strong seed, planted in a great need. I live here too, and I want freedom, just as you. All right. I travel the big seas, working on ships to pay my fee. Countries and continents welcome me. In Paris, in Africa, Russia, and China, I go around the world working like a miner. Not the kind my father wants me to be, in Mexico with an engineering degree, but a miner searching for riches from people of all races, discovering other voices and places. Going around the world, claiming poets from other nations, translating their sonnets and stories into something I can dig. Yeah, going around the world, digging life is my gig. When I'm not overseas, I'm in Harlem with writers, artists, and musicians, mapping out a world of laughter and strife, celebrating the beauty of Black life. It is now my privilege to introduce to you the man, my hero, Reverend Dr. Jesse L. Jackson Sr.
Respect me, protect me, never neglect me. I am somebody. My mind is a pearl. I can learn anything in the world if my mind can conceive it and my heart can believe it. I know I can achieve it. I am somebody. Stop the violence. Save the children. Stop the violence. Save the children. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Take it, Maurice.
Oh, I'm somebody. Come on. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor. Yeah. God made me so I am. Yeah. At the end of this day, you can turn to walk away saying, I am somebody.
Thank you for another glorious Saturday morning of our labor and our work. On this day in 1919, 100 years ago, there was a riot in Chicago, the 1919 riot in Chicago. We were blasted, we fought back and tore the town up. We fought back this the day of the riot 100 years ago. Next week I'm going to Poland, to Auschwitz, where they killed 500,000 Sinti Roma people called gypsies, which is not the appropriate name. They killed in that war 6 million Jews, 500,000 Roma, 20 million Russians, 22 million Chinese. 70 million people died in that war. We seem not to have learned yet. So we'll be going there speaking about the forgotten Holocaust. 4,000 were killed in one weekend. They would line them up in trains and take them a 2-day trip across the country. They would get to the crematory. They call it a shower. Men would go in one door, women in the other door. They turned the shower. The shower was gas. Then they would die, and they put them turn them into ashes, and put the ashes to feed the flowers. A horrendous killing, 50, 100 years, 75 years ago. This week, we saw 3 young white students trained by their parents, by their pastors, stand in front of Emmett Till's statue with guns drawn. Meanness and sickness abounds. We cannot surrender, we must fight back. Also, we urge President Trump, stop attacking the 4 black women. Stop attacking them. It is a dangerous proposition. Some of them could be hurt or killed because there's wild men in the street with these guns. Dr. King was demonized, he was killed. Miguel was demonized, he was killed, and so it's dangerous. But we cannot, it's not just 4 women, it's all the women should stand, Nash and all of them should stand together. You should not let the women be isolated. Furthermore, it's not about the border. There are 13 million Americans undocumented, 13 million. It's not the southern border, it's the B1 workers in Silicon Valley, workers from France, Russia, Italy, all over the world, 13 million. The college campus have the most undocumented workers. They come here, they go to undergrad school. They don't face student loan debt because the countries pay for their tuition. That's why college campuses need them, because there are more young Chinese in Champaign than African Americans from Illinois. China pays their way. And so if you're going to focus on 13 million, it's different than focusing on the border. Jen will talk more about that today. I want to make this point on this voter registration. 200,000 blacks in South Carolina unregistered today. 100,000 of books will change that state. Will send Lindsey Graham packing. Let me tell you what the vote means to me. We don't know that Trump didn't win the election in 2016. In Detroit, Michigan, 75,000 blacks in Detroit voted, and the president was not listed on the single ballot. Back over. 75,000 votes cast. Presidential was knocked off. Trump won by 11,000 votes. So no way 75,000 blacks voted in Detroit. Nobody voted for the president. So that's one case. Another case was in Greensboro, North Carolina, where I went to school, A&T. It's 3 congressional seats to go through one campus now. That school has 12,000 African Americans, the largest number of blacks in one spot. They cut in the 3 districts. I spoke at Winston-Salem State College. 7,000 had to march 3 miles down the road just to vote. So tricky leaks, hurt more than WikiLeaks. We must stop tricky leaks and voter suppression. A sad note this week, and the J. Paul Getty brought the Johnson archives of files of our pictures. We're going to say that they're our pictures, our images. They belong to us. We will not stop fighting. I want to express my thanks to Maurice Mahan, who sings so beautiful us every Saturday. Give Maurice a hand. I'll bring on last week, Jonathan and Will were not here. They were in El Paso and Juarez, Texas, and Juarez, Mexico. We sent them to the border to find out firsthand what they saw at the border, what we must do about it. Jonathan is so profound. His analysis is so clear. Let's give our national spokesman, Jonathan Jackson, a big hand. Give it up to Jonathan.
Good morning, Rainbow Push family and friends. I'm honored to be back with you today. First of all, I'd like to make mention of one other person today, Miss Maria Pappas. Maria Pappas is our county treasurer right here in the city of Chicago, in the county of Cook. She has done something extraordinary. She has assigned one of her staff persons to maintain some hours here so you don't have to go downtown, don't have to do heavy overrate and overpaying on parking. And out of Rainbow Push this year, with the assistance of one of her workers, Ms. Rosa, we have returned over $5 million to the community. For other persons, ministers, churches that want to get involved, please come by. This can be replicated in many other places. I was returned $2,000 that I did not know I was due. Of that, you'll get 10% to Rainbow Push, and more can get that funds as well. Once you've been blessed and get some found money, you better share. On last week, I had the opportunity to go to the border. Now, I must tell you, it is really cool being the son of the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Now, I, like many of you, had something else to do, had other things on my mind. I was looking forward to being in here in an air-conditioned room, and I had some other weekend activities, but my father told me and Pastor Will Hall, you need to have eyes on, boots on the ground, firsthand knowledge of what's happening. I thought I had seen it all looking at television, having read the newspaper. Thank God for my father, the Reverend Jackson, where his ministry is not confined to the walls. He has an ability to see the world. And as we left here on Friday, I will tell you, I will not complain. As I got down there and what I saw, and what I mean by being cool to have your father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Some people want their dad to be a basketball player, a football player. Nice if your dad has a lot of money. But when you can ask your father the eternal questions, the purpose of life, when you can have something meaningful to do with your father, when you can do something that makes a difference in other people's lives, Dad, that's cool. So just briefly, Reverend Will Hall and I, we left from Chicago, went to O'Hare, and weather was bad. As you see, this storm clouds are changing and weather patterns are changing around the world. We got our flight delayed, altered, changed, and finally couldn't make it through Dallas, went through Houston, flew into Houston, couldn't make our connection, had to spend the night. Praise God, there was a drunk driver when we got there at 12:30 at night, ran through a light and hit a wall just in front of us. These streets are dangerous. And was so drunk, put it in reverse, came out and kept on going. So we don't know the date or time that it could be our last date and time. Thank God for that. Having driven that night and got about 3 hours sleep and went back to the airport to make our connection into El Paso the next morning, and to have been greeted in El Paso before we went down to the border, I didn't know what to expect. I saw many of the pictures on there. First of all, I want to say thank you to the congressperson and the NGOs that are down there working tirelessly. We went to Casa Imigracion in Juarez, where the brothers of the Catholic Church or the Franciscan Order were out there working and doing services. I know we've heard a lot of things about the Catholic Church, but every day somewhere they're doing some good, and we praise God for their service in these neighborhoods, in and out, all year long. But let me tell you what struck me about Juarez and El Paso. El Paso is a modern city, 650,000 people, right on the border. Nothing separates the border of Mexico and the United States but a bit of a canal. 1.35 million people live in Juarez, Mexico, a modern city. I could see gleaming in the skyline beautiful American factories. You couldn't tell America from Mexico because it's all the same goods, all the same services, all the same companies. Juarez, Mexico is on the other side of the border where life expectancy drops quickly. When I left El Paso at 104 degrees on Saturday and 105 on Sunday, in a room not much larger than this, of 3,000 square feet, and they have the pallets and the little mattresses that they lay out during the evening and pick up in the night. One little air conditioning unit that I have in my bedroom in my house has to cool over 100 people. I noticeably saw women and children in there with nothing to do. They didn't have enough balls, only had one television, and just the agony of having to sit. Now, this was the good side because this was in the Catholic Church. The people are able to leave, but they know it's dangerous out there because there are all sort of predators that are trying to pick up women and children that are desperate. So we finally came and had lunch with them and saw people pass out food. And although they were scheduled to have a day off, they were anticipating 300 more people on top of the 300 people that were there, where people are having to wash their clothes. And when a woman leaves her country of El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, and all she has is her underclothes on and her jeans and one pair of shoes, and carried the one child that she could. Being poor and uneducated and not speaking another language, not knowing where she was going, but knowing where she had to flee from. Having sold all of their possessions, they are simply wanting some level of safety and freedom. There's a difference between someone illegally breaking into the country versus what is constitutionally written on an asylum seeker. When you cannot have any safety in your home, you are an asylum seeker. My father talked with you about the 1919 race riots here in the city of Chicago, which was one of 25 cities in Elaine, Arkansas, and Washington, D.C., and Omaha, Nebraska. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited about this time in life because we are now going through a revolution of our culture and understanding our history. This was not a great migration. We too were asylum seekers within our own country. When persons that had committed lynchings had never been prosecuted. Right here in Chicago 100 years ago, on July 27th, 1919, when a young African-American child built a raft, and some racists said there's a white part of the beach and there's a black part of the beach. God made one beach, but somebody said there's a white part of the beach and a black part of the beach. When his little handmade raft went over into the white side of the beach and someone threw a stone and killed the child, someone rose up in righteous indignation and stood up to fight back. And then race riots came out, and then the people that saw the child, that threw the stone, that killed the child, went to the police, and the police sat on their hands. They did nothing. So I applaud our mayor, Miss Lori Lightfoot, today, when she tells the FOP representative that you're a clown. I want to see some more men stand up and second the motion. He's a clown. And when they asked our mayor to apologize, she says, "I'm sorry my mic was on." When she was asked to apologize, she says, "I'm sorry my microphone was on." Now, our pastor, the Reverend Clay Evans, if you pushed him in a corner after he shared with you what was really, really on his mind, he would tell you, "I will add more to that before I take it away." She said what she meant, and she meant what she said. Now, when you've been sworn to uphold the law, and you've lied on your paperwork, you lied on a dead child, and you have no remorse, and you're talking about, "I lost my job," and this man has the temerity, the audacity, the unmitigating gall. He is a shameless soul at the FOP to ask for those men to get back on the force. We have great law enforcement officers. Those scoundrels, those lowlifes need to be prosecuted for lying on the dead. Now, I don't know what you're doing at home and in television land, but honest to God, you need to be at Rainbow Push, where the free people can speak. Doesn't it feel good to get it off your chest? I couldn't help but think about being in Juarez and have to ask myself the purpose of life. And that's where I say it's cool to have a minister as your father. You may not be able to go out and do all the things that people are doing that's cool and fun. But when you get a little bit older, you can appreciate the big picture. When I was driving into Juarez and I was thinking about the Talmud, the Jewish scriptures, and I couldn't help but think about the purpose of life. When you're down there and you have no shoes and your last clothes, I'm trying to put up clothes that I can no longer wear, that I don't want to give away. I, like many of you, got too much stuff. And if this is my last day on earth, what was it all about? Now, the Talmud in the old scripture says there was 613 things you need to do to get right in life. But then as it evolved and you got all the way to Isaiah and Micah, it ended up saying you only need to get 3 things right. You have to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And if you can't remember those 3, just remember the 2. To do justice and love kindness. Now, I know the president is boasting about the Supreme Court letting him build a wall. But God didn't build walls. He made mountaintops. He made valleys. He made rivers. He made estuaries. He made canals. He made a beautiful world. It's not filled with walls. What can be viewed as a victory in man's eyes to have a wall, you better be concerned about what God is looking at when you talk about separating his children. As I couldn't help but think about crossing over that river into Juarez from El Paso. You know that's right there in the corner next to which state? New Mexico. We're talking about Mexicans that can't come even into New Mexico. Who made these rules? You need to think and wake up and stop following behind rules that were meant to exclude you. God made the whole world. So when he sees people in Nicaragua, and he sees people in Guatemala, and he sees people in El Salvador and Honduras, those 18 and 6 and 6 and 9 million people, those are his children also. When I started thinking about the United States of America and the chants that we heard the other week, send them home, send them home. Dad, I could see in my mind's eye the Mayan temples down in Mexico. BCE, before the Christ era. BC, before Christ. AD, after death. When you're talking about Mayan ruins and statues and pyramids that have been up 1,800 years before Christ walked the earth, who are you talking about needs to go home? When you talk about how is this crisis being fueled? Well, the Mexicans have a role to play in this. They can even discriminate against their own Spanish-speaking brothers from another part of the hemisphere. I saw water parks, but I saw the children behind the church doors that had nothing to do. The Mexican government can step up and offer asylum and help employment and let those children play in the water park in Juarez. Do you think someone that speaks Spanish would discriminate against someone else that speaks Spanish? Let me say it another way. Do you think one black person with a degree would discriminate against another black person without a degree? There's discrimination there. And one of the heartwarming things before we left, Dad, was one of the officers, one of the non-GOs said to me and Reverend Hall, thank you for coming. It's good that these people see African Americans because there are African Americans in Mexico and Honduras and Guatemala and Panama and Chile and Spain. They need to see you care. There's a $320 billion worldwide drug business that's going on. You saw the headlines last week where there was $1.3 billion worth of cocaine picked up off of a ship owned by J.P. Morgan Chase in New Jersey. Now, when that cocaine comes out of Guatemala and Honduras, the people tell me it's $2,200 a kilo for the small farmer. That $2,200 becomes $12,000 when it makes its way to Mexico. From there, and it meets its distribution worldwide into Europe and the United States, it's $52,000 to $55,000 a kilo. When the 300,000 people were killed in Guatemala and people were sent to Los Angeles and deported, when the Ronald Wilson Reagan started passing guns and drugs in exchange to have democracy, quote unquote, what he said, racial hegemony in the Central America, we created the problem. When we heard from Congresswoman Maxine Waters and talking about the CIA, the cocaine import agency, bringing these drugs into our country. We don't make cocaine here. We don't make the marijuana here. Where is it coming from? When 50% of these drugs of heroin and cocaine is coming out of Colombia, they know where it is. They got GPS in cars, planes, even in your phone. We can eradicate drugs. This stuff is coming up on the Panamanian American Highway every day. But like my father says, just because they bring you the drugs, you don't have to use them. You don't have to turn to despair and want to be sleepy all day and escape your pain. Why don't you come out to Rainbow Push? Why don't you go to a church somewhere high and climb to a higher height? Our country is spending $40 billion a year, quote unquote, fighting the war on drugs, incarcerating, locking up 1.5 million people a year, putting in jail 500,000 people a year in the war on drugs, and disproportionately, that's 6 blacks for every 1 white. We know there's a war on the poor and not a war on the drugs. Watch the language in closing, ladies and gentlemen. I was trying to find America's back door. What do you do in a back door versus the front door? The back door versus the front door. The front door is close to the living room, architecturally speaking, and your sitting room, or even your dining room. The front door. The back door, if you have a large house, you may have a mud room to take your shoes off into, hang your coat up. The back door is where the kitchen is, where the help comes in, where you take out the garbage. The back door of America, they say, is Mexico, a country of 129 million people. I guess the front door is Canada, a country of roughly 39 million people. Our largest trading partner is Mexico, not Canada. The south of our hemisphere is 2/3 larger than the north of our hemisphere. How do you determine the front door versus the back door? The front door is where you want to greet people and treat them humanely and show them civilization. The front door is where when you see someone that needs some help, you offer to them and you give them hospitalization. You don't send the military to people that are seeking asylum. Who is an illegal alien? I remember in the 80s when they talked about a third world country. On the same planet? Where's the third world? Where's the back door to America? Is it where the Mayans had their civilization, where we all came from? When the first time I went to Los Angeles, I thought every black person in LA could speak Spanish. I would see Pico Boulevard before I knew that was a black man, Sheriff Pico. And I'd hear brothers talk about Sepulveda and Cahuenga and La Cienega. I didn't know those were just street names all in Spanish. We are a part of Mexico. God did not make a Hispanic. Hispanics are determined by the U.S. Bureau of Census south of the American border. In Mexico, they're Mexicans. When they cross the border coming north, they're called Hispanic. It's a political tool. It's an artificial term. Ain't no Hispanics in Spain. They're Spaniards. I can. The front door versus the back door. It's a level of contempt and arrogance. We've seen this, and my father talks about it, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, all the time, in being attuned to the language. The rich are said that they misappropriate funds, that they have engaged in mortgage fraud, and the poor steal. You say the rich misremember, and you say that the poor absolutely lied and obstructed justice. They say that the rich were juvenile delinquents and had some indiscretion in their youth. They were children at the time. And they say that these young African Americans need 3 strikes. They are irredeemable. Come on, y'all, stop playing with it. You see it when my child was on the highway one day with me, and he says, "Daddy, ooh, that's a bad word." And I'm driving, and I look around. "What are you talking about?" He says, "That word says hate." I said, "Oh, that is a bad word." But it was, "Everybody hates Chris." And I couldn't help but think, everybody loves Raymond. I couldn't help but think about Dennis the Menace, a child that has a problem, versus being a menace to society where all the children are the problem. Where you see the cartoon characters now where they're blonde and beautiful and white, and when they've done something evil, now they're going to be made to be black and a female with curly hair. You better watch what your children are watching, because that self-hate that can seep into us. I'm telling you, some of those Border Patrol agents that speak Spanish, that are Mexican of Spanish ancestry, have the same hate for their own people. I love Rainbow Push, and I love you more for even coming out and caring. There are too few of us to do too much, and there are too many that want to willfully be blind, to look the other way. And I'm going to leave this with you in conclusion: to do justice and to love kindness. Now, when I say kindness, I'm not talking about what some people are thinking. I'm not talking about offering milk and cookies and hugs to a little bitty baby. I'm not talking about being sweet and just lovey-dovey-wovey. I'm talking about a daring sort of kindness. I'm talking about a vulnerable kindness. I'm talking about a compassionate, caring, doing something kindness. I'm talking about a forgiving kindness. I'm talking about a grace and mercy and a love-filled kindness. I'm talking about in spite of kindness. I'm talking about being bigger than yourself, kindness. And when I say do justice, you've got to want to see. Dad, some people don't see a poor person all day long. They walk past somebody begging and hungry in front of their office every day. At every exit they get off on the highway, it's the same person, trust me. You may act like you don't see them, but they see you. And they know you. I remember giving something to we were at fellowship one day, Dad, and I told Reverend Evans, every time I come around here, this one person, he like locks into me and asks me for some money. And I didn't have any money to give. I was embarrassed. And I don't know what to do, but I don't know why he always asked me for some money. I'm thinking Reverend Clay Evans was going to side with me and tell me something I wanted to hear. And he says, "Jonathan, it's good that you have a look on your face that you would help somebody, because you don't have to be asked for nothing. because they know people that have something that won't give them anything. And he says, and secondly, it's a blessing to have something to give when you do. Do your best. That was his whole message. I left their heart broken, but now I feel a little better. Do justice. Love kindness.
Mr. Maurice, put your hand together. Let's hear it on your feet. Special love for Jonathan. I want Maya, our little blessed darling, to sing a song, but she's away in music school now. She's learning her craft. Her mom, son, mom, her mom's gonna give son, baby, give her a hand. Maya, sing something for us.
I will be singing To Dream the Impossible Dream. To dream, to dream, to dream the impossible dream, to write the unwritable wrong, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, and to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm till I'm laid to my rest, and the world will learn better for this, that one man scorned and covered with scars still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable, the unreachable, the unreachable.
beloved babies. Let me say to you as you go up there after today that one of the things Walgreens for sending so much product to the border. You brought diapers and the like. Give yourselves a big hand. We thank you. Let me make this point. This is one point, then I'll talk about more perhaps next week. July the 4th is not the right day to celebrate America's birth. America, we've been here 157 years before July the 4th. Cotton was the strongest product in the whole Western world, shipping it to India and Britain and France. It drove all the industries of America, cotton. See, we made cotton king. We made America rich and wealthy. The shipbuilders imported Africans, exported cotton. We're the foundation, not the bottom. Foundation is where you start from. We're America's foundation. This land is our land, made for you and made for me. This land is our land. We're not going to stop till we recover our land. Those who came last should leave first. They are.
In the morning, love, come on. Sunlight hurts my eyes. When something without morning love lies heavy on my mind. Oh, then I look at you and the world's alright with me. Turn it up. Oh, just one look at you and I know it's gonna be a lovely day. Lovely day, lovely day, lovely, a lovely day. Oh, lovely day. Oh.
Let me express, today we have a special group of young men who come from across the country. They're young lawyers who are in these corporations. They learn how to do law in high places, yet they have a quest for justice. Young lawyers, would you stand and give them a big hand? Put your hands together. All young black men are not in jail. So all young black men are not in jail. Some are paving the way. I want to make a contribution, time for our contributions. Some of you are not members of Rainbow Push today, and you've come. I want you to come back next week. There's so much work to be done. If you're not a member of Push today, raise your hand. If you're not a member of Push, raise your hand. I want you to join today. You're not a member, raise your hand. You want to join. If you're not a member, I want you to raise your hand. If you're a member already, if you would give $100 or more, stand. If you would give $100 or more, please stand. Shh. If you would give $100 or more, please stand now. We need your support. You would give $100 or more, please stand now. Is your restaurant open today? You give $100 or more, please stand. Or you can swipe. Landlords, I know y'all not out here broke. You give $100 or more, stand. Come right on down. You got money to swipe. I love that. If you're not yet given, please stand. least $50, stand. You give at least $50, do stand. We need your support. Your support sustains us week to week. Thank you so much. Mr. Bob wants execution back. Be careful what you ask for. You got some folk in administration eligible. Say if I knowingly allow America to be hurt, and I've sworn to uphold and protect. That's close to treason. I'm glad y'all standing up, man. I was calling y'all's name. Go move me, hon. Brother Paul Jakes, thank you for that big check you're pulling out. I see you. If you're not yet given, give as you're blessed to give. Give as you're blessed to give. You may not have 100, you may have 101. Give as you're blessed to give today. We need your support. I'm going to have a little meeting with you, and don't leave. I'll meet with you for a moment. The meeting is over today. Santita, next week we're going to sing Everything Must Change next week. Everything must change next week. Everything must change. Yeah. Now, friends, shh. I'll make this observation. Right now, we're meeting up here because we're fixing the roof on the building and the like. We're going to have to do next week some posters. Put in your barber shops, your beauty shops, wherever you live. We're going to begin to mobilize Hyde Park and where we live to fight back. Many people live next door don't even know we're meeting. I want you, if you want to be a volunteer, you want to be a volunteer to expand our movement, stand. You want to be a volunteer to expand, push, stand. You want to be a volunteer to expand, push. Raise your hand. Raise your hand, don't stand. Mayhan, give me a little Stevie Wonder there.
People, we keep on gunning.
Let us stand, let us stand. Everybody stand.
Soldiers, keep on warring. World, keep on turning. It won't be too long.
Oh my.
Powers,
Yeah.
keep on lying. Yeah. My people, y'all, they just don't stop dying. No. World, keep on turning. It won't be too long. Yeah. Oh, so bad that you try again. Let's all remember the whole world said, so we gotta we got to keep on trying till we reach a higher ground. Yeah. Wait, wait.
If you have not yet contributed, please come down. If you've not yet contributed, please come down. If you have not yet contributed, come give as you are blessed to give. If you have not yet contributed, please come forward. I want to see the young lawyers. Let's meet again, guys, okay? Let's meet downstairs. Say, I am somebody. I am somebody. Respect me, protect me, never neglect me. I am God's child. Never surrender, never surrender. Forward ever, backwards never. Forward ever, backwards never. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Let me hear you scream.
Somebody, oh, I am somebody.